Hello, I'm Dr. Chris Zimmer. I'm sorry I haven't done some videos for a while. I've been kind of ill. I came down with diabetes and I have some peripheral neuropathy. I've been having a lot of pain for quite a while now. I've been well most of my life, and it's just in this past year I've been getting very sick, and it's as if the enemy is attacking me because he knows that we're drawing towards the end. This rapture thing can't last for much longer. It has to happen soon. So let's get right to it. The outline I'd like to speak to you about is January 11th, or 1/11th. Was that the actual message, or was it something else? And then the Revelation 12 sign points to the rapture date, and I believe it's actually kind of encoded into it. And new 2025 codes found hidden in the number pi. And finally, I want to talk about the Esparto fireworks explosion that happened recently and some parallels to the rapture. So, 1/11, is this really the date, January 11th, or is it something else? Let's give some background. Ken Potter and Steve Fletcher did a video back in 2024 where they drew the conclusion that the eclipse symmetry was about January 11th, 2024. So all the eclipses could be shown to be centered, or at least the ones they showed, could be centered around the date January 11th, 2024. And they also mentioned that the blood moon tetrad symmetry was about the same axis, January 11th, 2024. So they surmised from this that January 11th, 2024 would be the rapture date, and naturally it turned out not to be. So we're looking for other reasons here. And previously, we crunched numbers for 4667 BCE, which we got out of, I believe that was from the number pi, and that tipped us off, and we used the precession of the equinoxes to develop the date January 11th, 2025. So now we have two January 11th dates, one that came from the eclipses and the blood moons, and also that came from the precession of the equinoxes. So if we look at 2024, we had some symmetry there. Actually, if we look at the Hebrew calendar, we had 1/11 in 2024, which was sort of the mirror image of Shavat 1 on the Hebrew calendar, which would be 11/1. And that did not turn out to be the rapture. If we look at 1/11 in 2025, we still have some symmetry. We have 1/11, which is the same as Tevet 11 or 10/11. If we disregard the 0, we've got 1/11, 1/11. So again, we've got this either mirror image or this bounce back of 1/1/1 in both cases. Neither one, of course, turned out to be the rapture. So there must be something else to this. Well, it turns out, I believe there is. If we look at the start of the Hebrew civil calendar, and I'm going to read you a short excerpt from Calendrical Calculations, the chapter on Hebrew calendar, and it says, the beginning of the Hebrew New Year is determined by the occurrence of the mean new moon conjunction of the 7th month, Tishrei, subject to possible postponements of 1 or 2 days. The new moon of Tishrei AM1, which is Anno Mundi, or from the date of creation, the first day of the first year for the Hebrew calendar is fixed at Sunday night at 11:20 p.m. Because Hebrew days begin at sunset, whereas our fixed dates begin at midnight. We define the epoch of the Hebrew calendar, that is, Tishrei 1, AM1, to be Monday, September 7th, minus 3760 on the Gregorian, or October 7th, 3761 BCE on the Julian. So they give two different dates, or two different dates, Gregorian or Julian, that they reset to be Tishrei 1 AM 1 on the civil Hebrew calendar. Well, this makes Tishrei the first month of the year, and Tishrei 1 AM 1 the first day of the first month of the first year, or 111, the Feast of Trumpets. So now we've gone through several different occurrences of 7-1 for Tishrei 1. Now we have 1-1 for Tishrei 1, or 111. So now we have two different ways of expressing Tishrei 1, or the Feast of Trumpets. Now let's look at the Revelation 12 sign as I believe it's been solved. First off, let's look at the 84 weeks that we had back in 2023 to 2024. And I want to emphasize that 4 days before Nisan 1, all of this was said to be made known. In other words, it's like this is something being unveiled to us. And the end of this unveiling, or this 84 weeks of, I guess you would call it signs and messages, the end of that was on October 31st, 2024. So this was 84 weeks spanning 2023 to 2024. And we had a lot going on. We had 4884 showed up twice for synarpazo, which means to seize by force and carry away. We had the moon occulting Venus, giving us a time, 8:53 a.m., which, which sort of emphasizes the time that we had already found previously. And we had the eclipse, the big one, on 4/8 that went across America, Canada, and Mexico. And we count 84 days from that to 7-1. So there's our 7-1 again. And then we have Feast of Trumpets occurred on 7-1, of course, Tishrei 1, which was October 5th, 2024. So a lot going on. There's even more than this. This is just boiled down a bit to show you the 4884 instances. But we had a lot of signs and lots of messages going on in this 23-24 expanse. Okay, so let's take a look at the Revelation 12 sign. And this was on September 23rd, 2017, at 20:53, or 8:53 p.m. IDT. And you can see everything's there. The crown of 12 stars on her head. The sun is there. The Jupiter in the womb. And the moon is below her feet. If we zoom in, we can see, drawing a line through her feet, that at that time the moon is just past under her feet technically. And that's on the 23rd. But if we continue on to the 24th, we can see that we still have the Revelation 12 sign going on. We've got a crown of 12 stars on her head. We've got the sun present. We have Jupiter in the womb, and we still have the moon under her feet, although it's passed into Libra now. And this is just a random time, about 9 o'clock in the morning. And we can see this still goes on if we even continue into the 25th. So Revelation 12 sign is still present on 9/25 at 3 a.m. And you'll see the crown of 12 stars on her head. The sun is still present, Jupiter's in the womb, and the moon is still in Libra. Now, I think this is legal to do because part of the sign takes place at one constellation above Virgo, and that is Leo. So we've got Leo being used for the crown of 12 stars on her head. So I think we can go one constellation below Virgo to say that the moon is still under her feet. So if we go to Libra, we can see that the moon is still in Libra on the 25th, and it's still under her feet. So I think we can call it in that respect, one constellation above Virgo and one constellation below. So it's still going on even at 3 a.m. on 9/25. But then shortly after that, and going into 9/26, the moon passes out of Libra and it starts to move into, I believe, Scorpio is the next one. So the sign is technically, if you want to call it, going into 2 constellations below Virgo. It's no longer occurring. So basically we have the sign taking place from 9/23 through 9/25. Okay, that being said, if we go back to the 84 weeks and we look at 23, 24, and 25, we begin the 84 weeks in 2023, and we can see in the number pi, 153, 2023, 68 appears in pi, and this is thanks to Drayton Bunyan, who found this one. Clues from John 21, 6 through 8 and 11 yield 153, 666, and 602. And of course we know the 153 big fish and the 666 the Antichrist. And 602 means in Strong's unveiled or uncovered, suggesting that these would be uncovered. And also in pi, I found another one here, 726, 2023, 853, 6, which gives Harpazo and the time, 8:53 a.m. The position gives 4884, so it gives us back that Sin Harpazo again. However, the rapture did not happen in 2023, so this backs up the thought that 2023 is just telling us when these particular elements were revealed. If we go to 2024, we get 84 weeks ends, and 4884, 2024, 755 reveals Sin Harpazo and Master of the Banquet, which of course would be Christ. And 8448, which is the inversion of 4884, also gave us revealing to guide or to steer, and a fishing hook, which is from the 44. And all this was, again, revealed in 2024, I believe. 4 books reveal, 7:1. Oh, this is, 4 books in the Bible, the 2 from the Old Testament and then 2 from the New Testament. 4 books total reveal 7:1 and 2024. So again, the rapture didn't happen on 7:1, whether it was July 1st or Tishrei 1, and it's more likely it's Tishrei 1, and in 2024. So this is just that element is being revealed in 2024. And also Luke 17 reveals 2:11, or that robbery theme. Now, if we go to 2025, 777 suddenly appears. Now we see in the number pi, 777 overlapping with 726, 2025, and 602, which is uncovering or unveiling. And then the same thing, only with 4667 at the end. And that gave us that date we could use for the final Tishrei 1 date, and that's how we arrived at 1/11, January 11th this year. And 777, of course, is completion or fulfillment. And then also, finally, in 2025, with that final date, we got from the precession of the equinoxes, that gave us the message, a gift from God. So we got kind of a dual message there. We got the 111, which is, or 1-1, which is another way of expressing Tishrei 1 as the first month and the first day. But it also gave us a gift from God, which of course is speaking of the rapture and I guess the glorified bodies. Okay, so that being said, we're looking at 23, 24, and 25. 23 and 24 being the revealing and bleeding over a little bit into 25, and 25 being, of course, the event or the actual rapture itself. And if we look at the Revelation 12 sign in September 2017, on the 21st was the actual Feast of Trumpets, or 7-1, Tishrei 1. So if you count 3 days, including that day, if you count 21, 22, 23, 1, 2, 3, then you arrive at the sign. So I believe they're separated on purpose that way so we don't get the actual Feast of Trumpets or the actual event confused with the sign, which took place in 2017. And if we count it, if we count it in terms of days 1, 2, 3, or 23, 24, 25, that gives us the actual year, the 2025 of not the sign, but now the event. So if we go to September 2025 and we look at the same date, September 23rd, the same day as the sign appeared in 2017, that is the Feast of Trumpets. So if we consider that everything or the order is reversed in the end times, then 21, 22, and 23 is starts with the Feast of Trumpets, and in September 2025, now 21, 22, 23 ends with the Feast of Trumpets, the actual event. So we've got the sign 1 year, and we have the event the following 2025 on the actual Feast of Trumpets. Okay, so you can also tie this in, I believe, to Revelation 12 and Revelation 4, where we have the sign on the one side. Revelation 12, of course, is a great sign appeared in heaven, woman clothed with the sun, and so on. And in Revelation 12:5 is where she's actually caught up, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. Okay, so that's all about the sign. If we go to Revelation 4, this is an actual event. This is John being called up or caught up to God's throne for him to see what must take place after this. And it says, a door standing open in heaven, and the voice I had first heard speaking to me like a trumpet said, come up here. So this is now the actual event. Now, interestingly, if we count the number of chapters between Revelation 4, the event, and Revelation 12, the sign, we get 8 chapters. So it's interesting also that between September 23rd, 2017 and September 23rd, 2025, the Feast of Trumpets this year is exactly 8 years to the day. So it looks like there's a correlation here between the sign and the event in Revelation and the sign and the event on the actual calendar. And of course, it's 8 years to the day. Now, if we look at this Tishrei 1 all the way from 2016 to 2033, the only time that Tishrei 1 occurs on September 23rd during that whole period is in 2025. So that we can't mistake this for any other year. If we want the same date and we want the same exact 8 years, it has to be 2025. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say on that. That's pretty succinct. So let's move on. Let's go to 2025 in the number pi, because there's another interesting actual date that sews this up for us in pi, and we'll get to that at the end of this section. Okay, so last time in pi we had some pretty interesting finds. We had in fact we just spoke about this a moment ago, we had 777, which means fulfillment, overlapping 726, which is harpazo in 2025, and then we had 602, which is the unveiling or the revealing, and then we had another instance of this with the year 4667 BC, and that led us to the final Tishrei 1 date. Okay, so this just shows where it showed up in pi. And we have some more interesting, actually this is all the same fragment, but it's in 3 different colors so you can see what's going on. This is 2111, or I should say, let's call it 211, and then that overlaps with 111 and 153, and 2025. So we get down at the bottom there, you can see 211 for that robbery theme, which is going to take place, I believe, this year now, and 153 for the 153 big fish, and 111, which we know now points us to Tishrei 1, only from the original Tishrei 1, where God put it at the first day of the first month of the first year, and then we set that on the calendar, and 2025. Now, there's another instance in the position of that. We can see the prefix of that is 726 up at the top, and that's harpazo. So this is sewing it up for us. It's telling us harpazo and 211 for the robbery, 153 for the big fish, 111 for Tishrei 1, and 2025 this year. It puts the whole thing together and says Rapture. And also, if we look at the 20 and 89, which precurses this, G20 is gladness, joy, exceeding joy, and G89 is without ceasing. So this is a beautiful message. It's very busy. There's a lot going on here. But we've got even more interesting things going on. We have a new 2025 clue from Pi, and this one is, if we do a search for 7/1/2025, looking for that Tishrei 1, or from the 7th month vantage point, we get 777 overlapping with 7/1 and 2025. So that tells us fulfillment on 7/1/2025. We also get something interesting if we look at how many instances of 111 show up. 111 shows up 100,503 times in the first 100 million digits of pi. And we can see if we eliminate the zeros that we have a 153. So interestingly, the 111 is correlated with the 153 big fish. Now, I'm not going to go into that because that's too many results to analyze here, but anyway, let's move on to 1/11/2025. It's interesting, there are 8 results, and we found that there were 8 years between 2017 and 2025 on September 23rd. And also we get 1/11/2025. And I didn't take it any further on that. I didn't analyze this one any further. But we do have another interesting one without the year if we look at 1/11, 777, and 923. So we get 1/11, Tishrei 1, 777, which is fulfillment, 923, September 23rd, of course, 761 and 2025. Those are unmovable, which cannot be moved, and truth, truly, true, or that should be verily, and truly. So this one doesn't give the year, unless you want to consider that 25 at the end of the 225, but that's kind of obscure. Anyway, so that's another interesting result. But this one, the final result that I'm going to show you, is just out of this world. This one is, if you do a search for 9/23/2025, there are 11 results in the first 100 million digits of pi, and we get 2111/923/2025. And that's 211 overlapping with 111. So we've got the robbery overlapping the Tishrei 1, and then we have 923, which is the actual date, September 23rd, 2025. So this is telling us that Tishrei 1 is going to be the date of the robbery, or the rapture, on September 23rd, 2025. This gives the actual date of the robbery. And if you look at the 4 numbers after this, this gives some interesting results too. This gives without wavering, to meet, things without measure, and to unveil or uncover. So this is probably the most profound information, or the most profound find of all, because it gives the actual date of the robbery. Okay, so that concludes the pi. Let's move on, and let's go to Esparto, because I believe there's some interesting rapture parallels here. So you know that we had a fireworks explosion on July 1st, very sad, and you see in the upper left-hand corner here, there's a mushroom cloud. That was the initial blast. And interestingly, there's a telephone pole that's superimposed over that looks like a cross. So it's as if we have two things going on here at the same time. We've got a mushroom cloud, we've got destruction, and then we have the cross superimposed over that. And then in the upper right is the young lady who was a girlfriend of one of the victims. And then in the lower left, we have the before image of the facility, and then lower right is the after image of the facility. And the date of the explosion was 7/1, and the supposed rapture date would be 9/23, which is 7/1 on the Hebrew calendar. So this is like telling us that 7/1 is, there's a sign that 7/1 is going to be something interesting this year. And also in kind of the same respect that the Beirut explosions were. Remember, in the Beirut explosions, we had two sets of weddings going on, two brides. One bride was in fear, absolute fear and horror after the explosion, and the other bride was whisked off to safety. So there was a message in that one as well. And here, 7/1 to 9/23 is exactly 84 days. So now we have that 84 weeks, or that 84-day tie-in, just like we did on that timeline. And of course, the 84 refers to the widow of 84 years at the temple. It's also the number of hours, which is 3.5 days from Jesus' death to his resurrection. And initially, in the reports for this, there were 7 missing initially, which is the number of the Holy Spirit, 7 spirits of God which will be taken up. So this parallels the rapture as well. If 7 is missing, that's implying that the Holy Spirit is missing or has already been taken up, along with those who have the Holy Spirit, those who are saved and go up in the rapture. So this is kind of a preview of what would happen in the rapture. 7, or the 7 spirits of God, or the Holy Spirit, will be missing from the earth because it's been taken up. And then the mushroom cloud implies sudden destruction or possible nuclear war. And even the name, Devastating Pyrotechnics, the name of the company, sort of, foreshadows that as well. And finally, the girlfriend of one of the victims is pregnant, and this gives us the sort of view of the woman with child that we saw in Revelation 12. So we've even got a component of the Revelation 12 sign here as well. So a lot going on. In fact, there were even some more I could cite. For example, the time was 5:50 approximately, and the 5:5, Revelation 5:5, alludes to Christ, and he's the only one worthy to open the seals, which happens at the beginning of the, when everything takes place in tribulation. So there's a lot more going on here that I didn't include. I just included some of the most prominent and interesting features of this. Of course, it's sad. We're sad for those, 7 people who lost their lives, and sad for the families of those victims. But it seems that God is also using this as a sign of some sort, as a prelude to the rapture, which we're all looking forward to. Okay, so that being said, I put up some times here for 9:23, if this is indeed the rapture, and it sure looks like it is, then these would be the times in the different time zones. I'm in a Pacific time zone, so I would be 10:53 p.m. the evening before on September 22nd. And I also wanted to mention, I want to throw something in there, that my mom passed away a couple months ago in May. And as part of the eulogy, I thought you folks might find this kind of interesting. As at the end of the eulogy, I wanted to add something. She was 96, so I'm not that sad about it. She lived a long life, and I'm sure I'll see her soon at the rapture. So, of course, I'm sad my mom passed, but, hopefully should see her very soon. And I just wanted to mention what I mentioned in the eulogy. Excuse me. She was 96, and I'd like to share with you how God speaks to us sometimes when we really need it. When we're down and we really need His help. And it was her, my mom, it was her last hour, and I held her hand at the hospital while she quietly passed away. And the time recorded by the nurse was 1918 hours. And those of you who are familiar with military time know that that's 7:18 p.m. And 7:18, or July 18th, was my father's birthday. And I took that as a subtle sign that she had just gone to heaven to be with him, that is, with my father, whom she loved very much. She will be greatly missed. So that's all I have for you. Thanks for listening, and God bless.